Alright, for my differentiated instruction mini lesson, I want to be in music education, so I incorporated a topic that's, could be middle school, high school, or college, just depending on the school and the ability levels and different things. So we're going to be working on like mixed meters, which aren't normal music times. They're hard to count, they're hard to work through. So to start out my lesson, I wanted the students to all be able to identify what a mixed meter is opposed to a normal meter. So I went ahead and, made a few different ways to learn to identify it. We have a listening and critical thinking one, which I would, play a piece with a normal meter and play a piece with a mixed meter and have the students identify the difference between the two, see if they can figure out which is which, and then eventually, break it down. And towards the end of my lesson, I have it to where they will, identify the whatever mixed meter it actually is, whether it's 5, 4, 7, different things like that. Another one that I had to be more individualized is students who are visual learners. I would give them a piece or an excerpt of a piece, and that piece would have mixed meters in it, or they would just be excerpts of mixed meters. And I would have them look at the groupings and decide if it's split into 3-2-3 or 2-3-2 or 2-2-3, different groupings, because that's important when playing mixed meter. The next strategy that I addressed was the same kind of thing we looked at in our example, but I think it works best, is the say, show, and model example. So I wanted to start it out with breaking it down and talking about what a mixed meter is and explaining it. So for people who can't see it, can't hear it, can't identify the difference, this way it explains it more. And then through this they would do more of a clapping, so it would be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, so you feel the pulse differently. So this is more of a feeling method. So I think that my biggest point would be a combination of the three. So figuring out what works best for each student individually as they learn about mixed meter. But then when it comes to the point where we're needing to apply it, we start working towards a combination of the three. An application of breakdown is how I put it. I would figure out for each student, have them figure out what works best, whether they want to listen to it and hear it. So I play the piece over a speaker system, or I just give them the sheet of music and they look at it and go, oh yeah, this is X key signature and it's split up this way, The other way is, if they have to like kind of do a combination where they have to listen or and clap or look and clap or kind of figure it out. Because if they're listening, bobbing along, that's a big indicator. The foot tap usually goes with that. So I would do it to where there were no instruments involved. I would give each student kind of like a handout or a test, take a class to where they had to identify them in each different style. I'd want them to identify it visually, listening orally, and also clapping it and seeing if they can figure it out. So I would have it split into 3 subsections and kind of see where each student falls and see who's ready. And once I feel that the whole course is ready, or the whole class is ready to move on, we'll move on to our final one, which would be the product. And I want it to be more of a personal application stage. And in this stage, I'm going to hand out a piece or an excerpt, and they're going to use their instruments for the first time. And for this would be what I want everyone to do, because they've had their individualized time to learn what works best, and I want them to apply what they've learned works best for them in what we're going to be needing for course work. So I would hand out a piece or an excerpt, and I would have them go home, and the districts I'm looking at working in all have iPads for students, so they would take home their personal iPad, and using it, they would record a video much like this, and of them, playing that excerpt. And I would grade them on their comprehension of it, because I kind of want them to, work it out to where it would be considered performance ready. And I want them to play it for me. And then I'd like to have the next class be more of a relaxed class for everybody, but one by one, students come in and I say, okay, how do we feel about this? Here's how I feel about it. Here's what we can work on. I would give them, I would say probably 2 tries on this excerpt and see if they can improve their grade, if they can improve their understanding. And the goal would be to have the entire class having a good enough understanding to move on and have a piece for the whole band to play for contests or something where it has mixed meter, because that shows a good comprehension of music for a band, especially a younger band or even a college band, because it can be really hard to switch from normal to mixed to normal to mixed to mixed to normal, So I'd like to be able to make it to where all students were comprehending enough to where we could work as a group and cohesively play this piece.